Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. So now we already, briefly discussed what we will be covering in the in this course on how to pray. But the most important part is before we start anything, any acts of worship. Of course, we need to know what's the importance of it, and it should be enough for us to know that yep, you know what, Allah, the one who created us, told us to do so, so we do it. That should be enough. And I had mentioned that in Islam in a nutshell course as well. But the key is that this is a requirement. Now, let's look at some of the verses in the Quran. Of course, the best way to know about the importance of this matter, is it really important? Is it something just nice to do? Something that, God will be happy, but if you don't do it, it's okay, because He's the most merciful. So let's look at some of the, some of the verses or some of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, that we had. There's one verse in Quran which says, "And I have created not the jinn," and we will talk about who jinns are. Will not, and I have created not the jinn and men, except that they should worship me alone. Right? That's the purpose of our lives. So the best way to get closer to Allah, the best way to worship Him is Salah. Now notice that I'm going to start using some of the Arabic terminologies. I'm not going to use prayer. Of course I will here and there, but for now, going forward, just make sure that you have learned this word by now, which is Salah, which I'm referring to our, 5 daily prayers. 5 daily prayers. Okay. Then we have, another verse says, "So glorify the praises of your Rabb," which means Lord or Master, "and be of those who prostrate themselves." Now, prostration is usually and this is Allah or God is referring to our daily prayers, and we'll see that prostration, which is putting your head to the foreground, to the ground, is actually a part of the prayer. It's one of the steps that we do in our daily prayers. So prostrate yourself. So Allah is saying, glorify the praises of your Lord. And how do you do that? Being one of those who prostrate themselves to Him. Now let's look at some of the other verses or the saying of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah again in one of the verses, He's saying, guard strictly the prayers. So He's being very strict to us that, hey, guard it strictly, which means that praying it on time. Don't be just go with the flow. Yeah, you know what, I'm busy right now, I'll pray later. It's a command. It's not it's something nice to do. He's saying guard your prayers strictly, right? So you cannot take it lightly. Now, here's one which you might find very strict. Now, this is a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. He's teaching us how we should be living our life, how we should be teaching our children. He's saying, order your children to be punctual in Salah, okay? And when they attain the age of 7. So before the age of 7, this is kind of upbringing of our kids. He's saying that when they attain the age of 7 years, now they're getting somewhat in their senses. Start teaching them about Salah. But when they attain the age of 10, by now this should be part of their habits. Okay, so if you're a new Muslim, you got some kids, start training them as well. And the best way to learn yourself is teaching. Teach your kids. And Prophet Muhammad is saying when they reach the age of 10 years, hit them. Okay, so this is, some people might find it very harsh or very strict, but again, Islamically, you're not hitting them to a point that they're getting bruises, right? This is definitely not allowed in Islam. But I'm being transparent. I wanted to make sure that it's clear how important it is for us to pray Salah. That it's at a level that we even are allowed to hit our kid, of course, just to intimidate them and say, hey, you know what, you were being taught for past 3 years that you have to pray. Now by now you should not be neglecting them. So if they hit them for abandoning Salah, in the same hadith or in the same saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he said by the time when they reach the age of 10, you should separate from bed. So if they have siblings and they're over 10 years old, then it's time that they should separate their beds. Now let's look at some of the other verses again, or some other sayings or the verses from the Quran. Now remember, when I say Quran, and I already mentioned this briefly, that Quran is the speech of Allah. Speech of Allah. Okay? And hadith are also teaching of Allah, but those are the words of Prophet Muhammad. So I'll be using this word a lot. Hadith are the words of Prophet. Over time, of course, I won't have to explain everything, because you guys will be expert at some of the terminology that we'll be using in this class. But just make sure that hadith as this is the saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, and Quran is the speech of Allah. So let's see, what does he say? He says, the covenant which is between us and them, meaning the disbelievers, is Salah. And whoever abandons it, it has disbelieved. Right? This is very strict, very strict. So Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, this is a hadith. He's in a congregation, he's in a gathering with his disciples or with his companions, and he's telling them that there's a covenant, there's a promise, there's an oath, a testimony of faith that we have taken with Allah, and the difference between us and them, meaning the disbelievers, the ones who are not Muslims, is Salah. What makes you, if you're gonna claim to be a Muslim, what makes you different is your Salah, your 5 daily prayers, and whoever abandons it has disbelieved. Between a man and disbelief and shirk is basically associating partners in the worship of Allah, idol worship, praying to Jesus or other prophets, right? Associating partners in the worship of Allah. So between a man and disbelief, and of course as well shirk, if somebody is believing in God but they're still worshiping others, is forsaking Salah. So it all comes down to, if you really want to call basically, to sum it up, if you are a Muslim, you cannot abandon Salah, the 5 daily prayer. That's what makes you who a Muslim is. If you're like, yeah, I'm a Muslim, but you know what, Allah will forgive me, I don't have to pray, it can actually take you in the state of disbelief, right? Because Quran is telling us, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon us, is telling us that you have to pray, right? Now remember, the key here, of course, there's going to be times you're going to end up missing prayers. Some scholars might have made a statement that, yeah, you know what, this is it, you're not a Muslim again. But for the most part, this is talking about when you say, I don't have to pray, it's okay, then you're, of course, going out of the fold of Islam by saying, yeah, I don't have to pray. But it's very clear in the verses of the Quran and the saying of Prophet that it is what makes you a Muslim. And if you don't do it, if you're negligent in the matter of Salah, then it can take you out of the fold of Islam, right? So the key is, try your best, of course, in the beginning, one step at a time, but over time, you cannot be lazy in this. If you've been Muslim for like 5 years and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm still a new Muslim, no, you should have learned this the first thing you did. Within 3-4 months, you should have been up and rolling and praying. Of course, everybody has a different level, but the key is, do not take the matter of Salah, the 5 daily prayer, lightly. Whoever guards it strictly will have light, evidence of his faith, and deliverance on the day of resurrection. All right, and of course, it is referring to Salah. Whoever guards it strictly will have light, evidence of his faith. So you can see when you come on the day of judgment, there's an evidence that is being shown from you that yes, you believed in Allah. And because why? Because of Salah. And whoever does not guard it strictly will have neither light nor evidence of his faith nor deliverance on the day of resurrection. And he will be gathered on the day of resurrection with Pharaoh, Haman, Qarun, and Ubay bin Khalaf. Who are these people? Pharaoh, of course, we know the Pharaoh who was just a very tyrant guy who just said, you know what, I don't even believe in God, so he doesn't need to pray. Haman was a general, and he was also considered one of the disbelievers. So at the same time, you know what, I'm in this level of leadership role right now that I don't have to pray because I'm too busy. Qarun was a very wealthy man. Right? These are all stories that we will learn later on, but he was a very wealthy man. So if that is what is taking away from your Salah, then again, you're going to be one of those who will have no evidence of faith. And you will be gathering amongst these people. If you're amongst the righteous people, you will be raised with the righteous people. Now, you don't want to be one of those who's being raised amongst these people. Just because you're a Muslim and you're not praying, there's a chance you can raise with these people. Ubay bin Khalaf was a businessman, and again, his wealth, his business, his whatever he was busy with, his daily lives, basically took him away from the remembrance of Allah. He who abandons Salah, then surely the responsibility of Allah to forgive him is finished. If you want Allah to forgive you, that is our goal. Allah, we make a lot of mistakes in our lives. The best way to ask for Allah for forgiveness is praying to Him, right? What has caused you to enter hell? This is in Quran. One of the verses in Quran is saying this is a conversation between the people, and they will be asking people of hellfire. hey, why are you in hellfire? We know why we're in hellfire. We know why we're in paradise. But why are you in hellfire? You seem to be a nice guy. And they will say, we were not of those who used to perform Salah. Meaning, they were Muslims, right? Because if it was a non-Muslim, they could just simply say, yeah, we were non-Muslims. We didn't believe. But these are Muslims who knew that they had to pray. But they're still in hellfire. Why? Because they did not perform Salah, right? Now, you might be saying, man, this is so harsh. But the key is, how can you claim to be a Muslim? How can you claim to be a person who submit and not remember Allah throughout the day? And this is something that is prescribed. This is the law by Allah. And he's if you're not listening to him, it is as if you're saying, yeah, you know what? I don't care about what you're telling me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And this is the reason why you're being punished for neglecting Salah. And the most important, and I'll top it off with our one of the hadith that is mentioned by Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, is that he is saying the first deed for which a man will be called to account for on the day of resurrection will be his salah. If it is found to be good, he will be safe and successful. But if it is defective, he will be unfortunate and a loser. So again, we are preparing for the last day, right? We're going to be in this world for temporary time, and we're preparing for this day. If things are good on this day, we will be entered in paradise. And if things are not good, then we're going to be entered in hellfire. All right, simple as that. That's our belief, the belief in afterlife, right? The 6 pillars of faith. And in order for this to happen, if you want to go in paradise, then you have to make sure that you are taking care of your salah, because that is the first thing you will be asked about. If any shortcoming is found in the obligatory salah, the glorious and exalted Lord, who is Allah, will call to see whether his slave has offered any voluntary salah, so that the deficiency in the obligatory salah may be made up by it. So we'll talk about what these voluntary prayers are and what the mandatory ones are. But Allah is merciful. He's saying, fine, you missed mandatory one. Let's see if you have any voluntary salah. Right, and if that, and then the rest of his actions will be treated in the same manner. So the key is, do not neglect salah. The importance of salah is it is mandatory. It is the way we can get to paradise. Okay, it is the way we can be washing our sins. We're making mistakes all the time, but salah is the reason how we can wash our sins. So and there's so many other hadith or the ayahs out there, the verses from the Quran, which are telling us about the importance of prayer. So the key is, for now, just know that it is mandatory. Don't take this matter lightly. Now, if you're ready, yep, I got it. Ustad or our teacher Harun, we got it. Let's go. Next step, how do I pray? Well, the first step is, how do I purify myself? Right. So we'll talk about purification in our next lesson.